The first key thing that we're going to talk about today, moving swiftly on, is the weekly review. So this is my recommended structure for your weekly review. You spend 5 to 10 minutes reminding yourself of what your most important priorities and goals and quests are. You spend 5 to 10 minutes reflecting on how your week has gone and celebrating your wins. And you spend 5 to 10 minutes planning for the week ahead in terms of defining your priorities and in terms of putting stuff into your calendar. For most people, it takes a minimum of 15 minutes. For a lot of people, it takes 30 minutes. Sometimes it makes it take a little bit longer if you're really in the groove, maybe 40 minutes, 45 minutes. I'm trying to give you, there's all sorts of ways to do a weekly review. This is kind of like the minimalistic weekly review. You can always add more stuff to it if you really want to. If you're a productivity junkie and you do a 2-hour-long weekly review every week, man, I applaud you for having the power to sit through that whole rigmarole. But I've tried my best to streamline it to the absolute essentials. So this is what my weekly review looks like. Ask a couple of questions. Number 1, what were our quarterly quests and how are they going? We're going to be talking about quarterly quests later today in the quarterly quest session. But yeah, what were our quarterly quests and how are they going? It is a reminder to check in on my most important priority for the quarter. Weekly priorities. What were last week's 3 priorities and how did they go? Again, just reminding myself. A simple reminder. Takes 30 seconds. Then we have reflect. Celebrations. What were the good and great things that happened last week? This is where I look through my calendar and I think about it a bit and I sort of just write down a few celebrations. Like, yeah, last week did my first Muay Thai lesson, that was good. Had my first squash lesson, that was good. I kind of went for a run most days. I sort of cooked a home-cooked meal, beef tacos, following the YouTube recipe, whatever, celebrating wins. And then challenges. What were last week's challenges? I.e., in what ways did we not act in line with our intentions for the week and what would we like to change, if anything, next week? You might be wondering, I don't think I talked about this last week, why I use we rather than I or you. I like we because we feels like I'm sort of, maybe this is just me, but I like we because it sort of feels like I'm using all the different parts of myself. It's like, yeah, our priorities for the week are ... Like there's the sort of obsessive productivity guru inside of me. There's the sort of creator inside of me. There's the insecure overachiever inside of me. There's the side of me that's like, oh, I don't want to do anything. I just want to sort of chill. Like all my different multiple personalities. They're all like, we're all working together to get to these quarterly quests and weekly priorities, and we're all celebrating our wins. So it's like, that's kind of like why I like we. It's a bit of a random thing, but I found it to be more motivating and more inspiring for myself than I or you, having tried all the different variations of this. Cool. And then finally, plan. Look ahead to the next 2 weeks. Does anything need scheduling in the calendar or any tasks need adding to our to-do list? This is a quick organization-y type thing. Weekly priorities. What are our top 3 outcomes for the upcoming week? Let's make sure those are in the calendar. Again, following that thing of like define priorities, sticking in the calendar, they're much more likely to get done. And finally, have we updated our tasks and project list? We are going to put a link to the Goalkeeper template, Google Doc, that has these questions in it. Feel free to screenshot this if you would like. Feel free to put this weekly review into whatever document or app or program you like to use for LifeOS. Again, the point of LifeOS is that it is a platform and app agnostic system. You can implement LifeOS in Notion, or in Trello, or in Asana, or in Basecamp, or in Todoist, or in Things, or in Google Docs, or in Apple Pages, or in Apple Reminders, or in Google Keep, or in Google Tasks, or in Evernote, or in Obsidian, or in Tana, or in Logsec, or in freaking Road. Like, you can implement this system in any app you want, which is why I'm not giving you specific tutorials on specific apps. I'm just giving you the system so you can bring your own app, because everyone uses different apps and has different productivity tools. You can even implement the whole thing using pen and paper or a bullet journal if you really want. Couple of key points around the weekly review. You should definitely be doing a weekly review. Even if you do it for 5 minutes, that's way better than nothing at all. This is, if anything, a note to myself, because I often forget to do my weekly review. If you forget to do your weekly review over the weekend, that's okay. I forget this quite a lot. Next time you do your morning manifesto, make sure to define your top 3 priorities for the week. About 30% of the time when I'm doing my morning manifesto and on a Monday, and I ask the question, what are our top 3 priorities for the week? I type in, oh yeah, whoops, haven't done my weekly review because I forgot, lol. Okay, let me think about my top 3 priorities. And then I define the top 3 priorities. This acts as another sort of like backstop or stopgap or whatever the thing is. Sometimes life gets in the way. Tomorrow I'm going to an island in Hong Kong and the whole day is spent hanging out with some new friends, and I'm probably not going to do my weekly review tomorrow because I'm probably going to forget because the whole day's super busy and then we got date night. But come Monday, I will remind myself to set my top 3 priorities for the week, which is why every single morning it's helpful to do the morning manifesto. A big part of LifeOS, a big part of a productivity system I've realized over the years is the act of strategic reminders. Most of us, you're here because you're probably a high achiever in some capacity, right? You know how to get shit done. Yeah, of course you could always do it with a bit more focus. Of course we can get distracted a bit less. Of course we could be a bit more intentional. But broadly, you wouldn't be here if you didn't know how to, baseline how to get stuff done. The thing is, a lot of this is about strategic reminders. We just need to remind ourselves about the goals that we set before. Like when people set New Year's resolutions, a big reason why they don't stick to them is because they don't remind themselves of what they were. When we set quarterly quests or whatever, or create a vision board, the whole idea is we strategically remind ourselves that, oh yeah, a previous version of me that was doing a Zoom session with Elliot Dahl and a couple of thousand people from around the world, like I decided then that I really wanted to learn martial arts. And at the time, I told myself it was a really important thing for me. And you know what? It's still a really important thing for me. So I just need to remind myself that was the case, because when life gets in the way, when there's all this stuff happening in work and in life and at home and with the family and all this random stuff, it's the act of strategically reminding ourselves of what is important to us that helps us sort of navigate our ship through these waters of a shit ton of tasks like landing on our plate. One of the books I'm reading at the moment is Oliver Burkeman's new book, Meditations for Mortals. Also, it's a nice, good follow-up to his wonderful book, 4,000 Weeks, Meditations for Mortals. One of the things I was reading in it last night is basically like, we can never get everything done, right? The whole thing around productivity systems is like the way to fail a course like this, or think that you're failing a productivity system, is to try and do everything. No one can do everything. Like, we literally have an infinite amount of work that we could be doing. There's always more you could be doing for your health. There's always more you could be doing for your relationships. There's always people you could be keeping in touch with. You probably know that one of the top 5 regrets of the dying is I wish I hadn't lost touch with my friends. good luck keeping in touch with all your friends across your lifetime. Man, it's just an endless to-do list. There's, of course, a new event we could be organizing. If you could take part in your kids' parent-teacher association so that like you're more plugged in with the school. Of course, you could get ahead on your work and you could always update your CV and you could always be creating content and you could always be posting on LinkedIn because, of course, you should be posting on LinkedIn. And, of course, you should have a personal website because, like, you know, personal brand and stuff. There's literally an infinite number of things we could be doing. And trying to get through all of it is a recipe for disaster. Instead, the whole point of LifeOS, the whole point of these productivity frameworks is to help us just focus on what is the most important and allow the other stuff to more or less go by the wayside. The stuff that's truly urgent, like filing your taxes, it's probably going to happen at some point. You know, last night was the filing deadline for self-assessment in the UK. And so Izzy, my wife, filed her taxes pretty much at midnight last night just to avoid the penalty. Like, you don't need a productivity system to get you to do the absolutely urgent stuff that's going to get you arrested if you don't do it, or that's going to get you fined. You need a productivity system to remind you of what is the most important stuff, which is why we have these layers of redundancy in the system. Every single morning, we ask ourselves what were our quarterly quests because they're important. And every single week, we're asking ourselves what are our quarterly quests and what are our top 3 priorities for the week. So all of that said, it's a bit of a rant, but like, well, I've been seeing a lot of questions actually from you guys in the Zoom Q&A. Oh, by the way, the Zoom Q&A is a thing, and also by email afterwards and feedback on the course. Kind of with the general sentiment of, but I still have all these things to do, and this system isn't helping me do all the things. And so I kind of just need to say that up front because I don't think I said it at the start of the course. The point of the system is not to help you do everything because no one can do everything. Like, there's just infinite stuff to do. The point of the system, which is why we spent 3 of the components talking about vision, is to identify the most important stuff and then try and remind ourselves of what the most important stuff is because all of the other crap is going to get in the way. So that's my rant for the week. Anyway, all of this is notes to myself because I struggle with this a lot. You know, productivity debt, productivity purgatory, all the stuff like, oh, I didn't quite get enough things done today. It's like, I have to remind myself, you know what? It's okay. I did the most important thing and that is what matters. Anyway, your weekly review is a living, breathing component of your LifeOS. Feel free to start with the questions I use in my own weekly review, but adjust them over time to suit your own needs and context. So these questions here are just a starting point for you. You might find that you don't need to ask yourself the challenges question, or you don't need to bother celebrating the wins. I recommend celebrating the wins, but you might decide it's not important for you. You might add a question to your weekly review saying, how did I make sure I connected with each of my kids this week? That's a totally fun question to ask. I used to ask myself in the question of the weekly review back when I was trying to work on six-pack abs last year, did I hit my protein and calorie targets for the week? And I just included that as part of the weekly review because I knew it was like a weekly check-in. The weekly review and the morning manifesto are these 2 keystone habits where you can, over time, adjust them to whatever system works for you. I would still recommend following a rough structure, like remind, reflect, and plan, but of course you can always add and remove things based on your own context. The weekly review is a keystone component of LifeOS. It's a weekly touch point where we remind ourselves of our priorities, reflecting where we're going, on what we're doing, and plan our projects and priorities for the following week. These are the 2 keystone habits, weekly review and morning manifesto. If you just do those things, you can hang any other habit or anything else off of the back of the weekly reviews. Cool.